Hi Cassians, hello everyone else who is watching. Hope you're good. This is the second video in the pattern series and I'm going to be thinking about colour this time. So to colour in my pattern that I made in the last one, I need to choose colour schemes carefully. So obviously at the moment these three colours are very important. You've got red, yellow and blue. They are the primary colours. They're the easy colours. They're the ones that all the other colours are made of. You have, after that of course, the secondary colours. So orange, it's a mix of red and yellow. You've got green, there's a mix of blue and yellow. And you've got purple, that's as close to purple as I can get with these colouring pencils, which obviously is a mix of blue and red. You've got some other colours as well, so usually in the pack. So light blue actually wouldn't fit in this part. It's a tint because it's got white. It's the same as this but with white in it. So that doesn't really count, but I can put it there anyway. And the same with light green. Again, it's a tint, it's got white in it, so it's part of the green part of the colour wheel. So what I need to do is I need to choose three colours to use on my pattern. So what I'm going to do, and what London Underground used to do with all their seat patterns, is they used to use red and green a lot. Red and green obviously are opposite each other. Because they're opposite, it means they're complementary, which means if you put them together, they get really bright. They sort of bounce off each other. I like to say they zing off each other. But yeah, if you mix them together, you end up with a sort of mucky, muddy colour, and they all disappear. So I'm going to complement that with another colour, and I think what I'm going to do is use blue. So I'm going to use those three colours. Before I go for it though, I'm going to have a quick road test first on a scrap piece of paper, see what they look like. Now, I have put a video in my basics section about using pencils, colouring pencils, and how you use them properly. Briefly, if you are sharpening them, use metal sharpeners. They're much better than the plastic ones. The plastic ones are usually a bit too tight and they break and they're just a nightmare. These ones, obviously, you know which one you're going to use. That one's for fatter crayons and things like that. But these metal ones, they're much better. The other thing is don't over sharpen your pencils. If it's too sharp, when you put it down, it breaks. You get little bits of green or whatever colour you're using everywhere. So it's best not to sharpen your pencils until they're too sharp. Okay, so just to see what they look like, I'm going to do a little shape in red. Two techniques are quite good for this. So back and forth, talked about that before. Stumbling, where you go around in circles. Yeah, just to sort of see how these go. So red and blue together look very good. Let's have a look. Yep, I like those two. And red and green. So you can see if I put those two together, they work really well together as well. So I think these colours are perfect. That's what I'm going to stick with. So back to my patterns. I put a link when I made this project up to a website or a bloke from the Museum of Transport who looked at the patterns that have been used in the London Underground seats and on the buses. And it was made out of a very special fabric, and the patterns that we use on it were obviously very hard wearing, so something that everyone would have seen every day on their commute. What I find, I think I've got these two which I'm going to use for my main colours, and red, because it's lighter, I'm going to use it as a highlight colour. So I'm going to start off by colouring in these little bits red. Now when I'm colouring in, I say this every single time, a lot of children will just go, I've done it, there you go, finished. You've put a lot of time and effort into making this. So if you put time and effort into colouring it in, it will pay dividends and it will look really, really good. So the first thing that I do is I always go around the edges. I also try to make sure I'm applying even pressure so that my mark always comes out the same. Because if you imagine how many of these I've got on here, there's a lot, yeah? And I want them all to be pretty continuous. The other thing as well is things like pencil marks. If I go over this pencil mark and I'm pressing hard and scrubbing across it like this, I'm going to spread that pencil mark out. So I think what I might do is actually go and rub them all out. But yeah, before I start, in fact I will rub this one out now. The pencils that I've given you from school, these ones, these Staedtler ones, they're really good because actually you can rub them out a little bit. So if you do make a mistake or you go out over the edges of your place, don't stress it. They will rub out with a decent rubber. So back to the colouring in. I've gone around my edges. I've got a nice border. My nice border is great. It means that everything has something to bounce off. It means that I can colour this in a bit quicker rather than having to be super careful. I'm going to use back and forth strokes on this. Nice and simple. There we go. That looks a lot better than, you know, that. And that would, you know, it just does look better, and it shows that you made an effort. Right, I am going to fill in a few more of these, so I'll join you back in a minute. I decided that after I've done my red, finished my red off, that's all done. Now I'm going to do my green. Now, to make sure that I know where I'm going to go, I've obviously got a rule that I'm going to follow, keep my pattern regular, and I'm going to start with my green colour. So what I decided was, if this shape here is upright, if that's the right way up, I'm going to colour in all the ones that are the same on this row, right way up, as you can see, like that. And what I've done is, the reason I put these little squiggles on is so that I know which one's which. And because if you're not careful, you can focus in on one point all the time, and then you come to the next one and you make a mistake because you're not seeing it because you're too busy focusing on one part. So doing this and just very lightly putting a little bit of colour on each one that you're going to do helps. Obviously my rule here is to go along that edge with all the upright ones, and then I thought I'm going to change it a bit and flip it. So I want to do all the ones on this one that are upside down, if you like. I think that's the best way to describe it. So again, I went over those, and of course then when I get to the next row, I go back to my original one as well. So it's sort of making a list of rules, or making a list of or an algorithm, so I know what I'm going to do as I'm going along. So all of these are the upright ones, all of these are the upside down ones, upright, upside down, and then of course I get back to my colouring in, going around the edges carefully, making sure I've gone in all the nooks and crannies before I start, and then going and doing my back and forth strokes. Of course, stumbling, you can do that too. You don't have to do back and forth. And just remember, when you're sharpening, don't sharpen it to the finest point you can get, because it'll just break, and also it means that your pressure will not be even. When you have finished and you've gone round these, one thing that I find is really helpful, you can use your finger, or you could use a tissue if you want, but I rub over the top of it, and that makes my it makes all the colours sort of blend together. There is always a little bit of loose coloured crayon or coloured pencil left, so it just makes sure that, because obviously you've got little bits of white, and if you want to make a really good colour, then you don't want that. So I just get my finger and just rub it, and rubbing it, it just makes it all blend together a bit better. Okay, I'm going to do the rest of this now, and I will see you on the other side. Okay, so there's my green done. Final bit is the blue. I think you know what's going to happen here, you know how it's going to work. Again, borders around the outside, not too sharp a pencil, and just take your time. Okay, so one thing I'm going to do with this, because I've got all these shapes next to each other, and I might go back and do this with the green as well, I'm just putting a little bit more pressure on this side of the shape, so that I've got some differentiation between that shape and that shape. It's not much, it's just enough to suggest it, otherwise my shapes might get lost or merged together. Doing the same there, and I'll do the same on all of these where they join up. Okay, so I'm getting to the last parts now. As you can see, my colouring has gone quite well. I'm pleased with it. And quite by accident, I started doing a diagonal line across here. And then I did this one, and I left that one blank. And I realised that actually, this blue is quite dark, so it is actually pull it down slightly. So I was thinking about, I want to keep with my colour scheme, I want to keep my red and my green, because that's very much like the moquette patterns from the seats of the Underground and the buses and things like that. But I think I need to lighten it slightly, so I'm going to use a light blue for these last pieces. Okay, she's nearly there. It's all just about finished. The last thing I'm going to do, like on this one, I shaded these bits dark to give that little bit of a line. I'm going to do the same. I'm going to do the opposite way around on these. So I'm going to just shade this in slightly, just to get a little bit of differentiation between the two areas. Not completely necessary, but I think it works, and it's quite nice chance to practice my tone work as well. So there you go. This is colouring in. As you can see, there's not any paper showing through. I've used my methods, I've used my techniques. Yeah, it's ready to send off now to London Transport, see if they'll put it on a tube seat. I think that would look quite good if it was a bench or designed for a bus seat. Yeah, I hope you enjoy this. Let me know if there's anything else you want to know. I will do another video on shading and using tone and colours soon, so keep your eyes peeled for that.